Max Gorlin, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell from the Hawthorn Footy Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Hey friends, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well and welcome back to another episode of the 50 Most Relevant, where we work through who I think are some of the most relevant players that we've got to have a conversation about this pre-season. We're getting real close to the top 10 now, and today, number 14 in my 50 Most Relevant is Western Bulldog Adam Treloar. He's been this high in the 50 Most Relevant before, but never got this high off the basis of positional availability. He is a brand new mid-forward available to us, and it is one of the primary reasons he's so high in the 50 Most Relevant. We haven't had this special guest, and he's not a special guest. He's a regular and co-founder of the Coaches Panel. We haven't had him for a couple of weeks, so it's good to have him back. I've got Rids. Hello, buddy. How are you, man?
Hey, how you going, mate?
I'm good. It's good to have you back. And Adam Treloar is this fascinating player to discuss. And as we get higher through the 50, it starts to become harder and harder to build a case to either not start a player or to not look to this certain players as upgrade targets. And last year, despite things not quite going his way at 28 years of age, he still had some nice scores for us. 127 in AFLFantasy and DreamTeam against the Lions was his best score in that format, while it was 123 against the Port Adelaide Power in SuperCoach. Neither of those got a candle to what his previous scores have done. 2019 in SuperCoach, it was a 177 against the Suns, while in AFL Fantasy and Dream Team, you're going back 8 years now, 159. You might hear that and go, oh, that's way too long ago. No. He's been that good of a fantasy player pretty much since 2014. He's priced around 87 in AFL Fantasy and Dream Team. So in those two formats, around about 730, 740,000, while in SuperCoach at 88.7, his average means he's priced in that format at 483K. And Rids, not a lot's really gone right on the football field for Adam Treloar over the past 18 months, has it? Gets squeezed out of a club that he loves in Collingwood, comes to the Western Bulldogs, has a calf injury through the preseason, works his way back, looks very, very good, syndesmosis injury, works his way back, gets into a grand final, and then just some of the Melbourne brilliance in the last 30 minutes of that game takes away another premiership dream from him. So as great as he is, he has had a frustrating past 18 months as a footballer.
Yeah, but I don't reckon he features MJ if he didn't have a bit of a frustrating 2021.
Yeah,
so
that's a
I
fair
reckon
call.
he is 14th in this list because when he came back from injury, they sat him in the forward line and eased him in to try and play finals. And
without doubt.
really, they got him through that. So we should be saying, you know what? Thank you, Adam Treloar, because you are now eligible as a forward. So thank you the way the Bulldogs managed him and everything else. And that might be frustrating for those who own him in a keeper league or anything like that. You know, because you don't want 30s and 40s and 50s and so on and so forth. You know?
Sure.
But, I mean, this guy is a genuine fantasy beast.
And he has been.
The forward line, though, MJ.
So good.
Like, I mean, and we're only talking about a guy who's, turning 29 this year? It's not as if he's an ancient history.
No. He's a phenomenally good footballer. And we saw glimpses of it at the Bulldogs. And it's crazy to think that the phrase Adam Treloar and under the radar actually go together, because for so long at Collingwood and previously at the Giants, he was arguably the best midfielder in those two teams. And now he comes into a team where they've got a future Hall of Famer in Marcus Bontempelli, one of the best contested ball winners certainly of the modern era in Tom Liberatore, Mr. Everywhere man in Jackson McRae. And so the beauty for the Bulldogs to have him as this complementary piece to be so damaging is absolutely petrifying if you're an opposition analyst looking at how you beat the Bulldogs. But from a fantasy perspective last year, 6 AFL Fantasy and Dream Team tons, including that season high 127. He had a bunch of other games where he had 85 or plus. And in isolation, you look at those and go, boys, why is he so high? Well, it's for 2 reasons. One, as Rids, you've already talked about, he's forward eligible. But second, he had a 6-game stretch between round 3 and round 8 in Dream Team and Fantasy where he averaged 109. And what happened? Well, he played through the midfield. That's very, very similar in SuperCoach. Rounds 2 to 7, he averaged 108, but over the season, he only scored 5 tons and 5 additional scores, 80 plus. So we talk about a player, Rids, who, when he was back into that midfield mix, and I think, and this is not just I think, the data and the CBAs and the time on ground confirm this mindset in my eyes, that he needed to be built into that role again, coming off the calf in the preseason, building into it to manage him through that almost successful final series for the Dogs. They needed to keep him out of that CBAs. But when he did, Rids, it was exactly what he'd done since 2014 at all of his clubs, which was 103 to 113 average everywhere he's gone.
Yeah, but the crazy thing about that, okay, is he took a couple of rounds to settle into the season. That's we've got to expect that. It's a
calf and a new
team.
club. We've got to expect that.
There's new teammates. It's chemistry with players. We got his best mate getting injured reasonably early. We got a whole heap of stuff going on with the whole debacle with his exit from Collingwood.
Yeah.
But go back into his history, okay, of football. This guy doesn't just do 100 and then a 70 and then 100. He goes on these monster runs of hundreds,
he does,
where he has 5, 10 rounds in a row, and there's 100 after 100 after 100. Now, if you go back to 2019, okay, and I'll just show you a couple of examples.
Yeah, please.
Round 5, he went 120. This is DT and AF, okay?
Yeah, but it's comparable for SuperCoach, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. 120, 105, 120, 116, 113, 114. That's 6 scores in a row, you know? And then what he did was after the bye, he then went from round 14 all the way down to round 21. And there's history of this guy doing it. Have a look at last year, MJ.
Yeah, it's true.
He had from round 3 through to round 8, again, large stretches of 100, 100, 100, 100. Because one of these things with Adam Treloar is his gut running is just elite. And
one of the best in the comp. Amazing.
And he finds the ball at will. He just finds it. He knows where to get to. He knows the space to get. And he's a mark kick type of player. You're not going to see Adam Treloar go around and do those dinky little handballs around the place. He gets the ball and runs and actually impacts and he tries to carry and hurt the opposition by his run. So this guy is actually, I can't overstate it enough. He's an absolute fantasy beast at best. Now, let's go jumping back a little bit, and I don't want to talk this up too much because I don't want people jumping on. I want all the crazy talk that's going on this preseason to go crazy, but the reality is he's got another preseason under his belt with
that's true.
The midfield, he's feeling much more comfortable this time around in the new setting of his new teammates.
Yep,
he's got a lot more stability in his life right now. He's not coming off a crazy trade period. In a last minute trade from the year before. He's touch wood, we're hoping that he doesn't have any injury concerns over the next couple of weeks before round 1. Now, there's also a lot. This time last year, he's got his partner.
Yeah, was up in Queensland playing netball.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, okay? We got no more border restrictions. We got no more lockdowns. There's no more hubs. There's no more, we're moving forward a little bit away from COVID. Adam Treloar needs a bit of love. People give him a bit of a hug. He needs his support network around him. He needs his support network, and he needs to go and visit and see people and do his things. I reckon this year is shaping massive for Adam Treloar.
I totally agree. The crazy thing, people look at last year and go, oh, his role wasn't always great. There was an injury impacted game where he did his ankle, that syndesmosis. And yet still based on the forwards we have right now, he's a top 6 forward in AFL Fantasy and Dream Team and just marginally outside the top 10 in SuperCoach. And we've made much of it through the preseason already of, okay, now that Dream Team and SuperCoach have followed suit with these in-season DPPs, we need to create some margin for these potential midfielders that we might be getting a la Josh Kelly of last year for AFL fantasy coaches that we need to make some space for. Here's the thing with Adam Treloar. We've actually already got him. I am not of the opinion that he is a forward in the Western Bulldog side. I'm of the opinion he had to play forward for Luke Beveridge to ease and build him into the finals. That is 100%. And I think there's the statistical data to back that up. But there's two things about Adam Treloar that have people concerned about him. And I'm keen on your take on both of these in a sec, Rids. But my statement is this, is you either start Treloar or you avoid him for the year. Because the two concerns people have about him, they're not going to go away as the games progress. The two concerns people have is this. It's around role. He actually did do quite a good job in the forward line. In that Bulldog surge in that second quarter of the grand final, he was a really key reason through the forward line that they kicked multiple goals. I think he even kicked 3 goals in the grand final. So some go, well, he's really quite damaging in that role. And he's been a goal-scoring midfielder for many years. The other is they see the build-up of injuries over the past few years of his career. 13 games last year with 2 known injuries. Only half of the available games in 2020. Yep, 2019, fit as a fiddle. But even then 2018, you've got to go back to 13 games. So there's this growing narrative of uncertainty about role, uncertainty about durability, which has people concerned to start him. But as we've always said on the coaches panel, Rids, these guys that have quote unquote bad injury history, it's start or pass entirely. But what do you say to those two big objections someone has to Adam Treloar, the role concern and the injury history? What's your kind of take to that?
I actually think the world has changed with the limited trades. So now that there's 5 boosts a year.
And up to 35 trades in DT and SuperCoach.
I mean, you might as well say we got 2 trades a week.
It's not far off it, is it? Yeah.
So the problem I have with Adam Treloar is I don't think it is as easy as you either start him or you don't. You actually got room here that if you don't want to start him, you can just bring him in 2 rounds' time and then have him there, If he comes out and you want to have a look, you can actually sit there and have a look. Start someone. Let's just say start Taranto. Now, if Taranto starts forward and the Giants are being a bit sheepish with that, and you don't like that, and then Treloar goes out and scores 100 in his first or second game, he's already stretches 100 after 100 after 100 in runs.
Yeah.
Why not make that move?
Yeah,
so I actually think there's a new world. So we're a bit old school, aren't we, MJ?
We are very old school, yes.
Yeah, so we're a little bit more, you pick your keepers, you do this, you do that, your season-long keepers, and then you try and work through and build your team around them. You don't really try and, it's more of the old-style guns and rook approach. But at this point in time, I actually think it changes a little bit and it moves towards more of an AF process.
Yeah, where you're looking for value with almost every player that you start with or bringing into your team. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how often do we get a possibility of 100 plus forward, from season to season? There's only very rare.
Yeah, it's true.
But this year we've got a surplus of them. And I reckon that there's every chance you could probably say that Treloar really what's he priced at 87 in DT?
87, 88 across the formats. Yeah.
Yeah. I reckon he's well and truly closer to 100.
I think so.
I think if he stays on the par, he's guaranteed 100. Yeah.
Oh, I think he's one of the easier picks for the year because the narrative for me is that's his basement. This is as bad as he will be. And so if that's as bad as he'll be, but his upside is 2018, 2019, 108, 113 in Dream Team and Fantasy, 109, 113 in SuperCoach. That's his upside. And so we've got 15 to 20 points per game of value potentially in build here. Or at worst, he holds. And to your point, Rids, you go, okay, 2 rounds in Dream Team and SuperCoach, price hasn't moved. Oh, Taranto is popping. I got to get him. Heaney delivers what people think he's being mooted with the midfield role. I'll jump down to a hip. You've got options. You can create, you can move in AFL fantasy. You give yourself a fortnight and readjust if you have to with the 2 trades a week. I just feel like he lets you go wherever you want to go, regardless of the way you choose to play the game.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I think you just got to be a little bit more fluid this year, a little bit more flexible with the thought process, I think. So in the Dream Team and SuperCoach at the moment, now that positions are changing and so on and so forth, if this guy plays, he's going to be in the top 6 forwards, no matter who gets forward eligible.
Yeah, it's very true.
He's starting as a forward. So I think sometimes you just don't look a gift horse in the mouth, I reckon this guy is absolutely needs to be considered. You probably need to have a rule around it that he has to at least play 1 preseason game, or
I agree.
You get to see him at least once.
Yeah, see the role. Yep.
Yeah, if he plays in the guts and he does set about attendances like you mentioned before, I mean, you just got to back it in. I reckon he's anywhere up to 20 points value on his starting price at the moment. So
I agree.
And I'm with you. I don't see him having massive stints anywhere else but the midfield. So
it's actually what he's great at. And you look at that Bulldogs side, how they're building. You want Cody Waitman to be the X factor. They've got some elite tools that are developing and have just lucked into another one in Darcy, who's going to be there. But Ugle Hagen's barely been seen. Aaron Norton's got one of the best pair of hands I've ever seen to take marks up forward. It's Treloar, a gut-running midfielder.
Yeah,
Please.
I just think
it doesn't make sense.
I just think when I look at that midfield, okay, for the Dogs, and I know they go deep, okay?
Yeah, very deep.
Liberatore is obviously a pure mid.
Yes.
You've got McRae, okay, who I don't actually see any other role for McRae, but we all know McRae's much better.
He's a roaming mid
than outside. But he's going to find space. He's going to do what he does. Treloar's going to find space. He's going to do what he does.
Agree.
Bontempelli can pinch hit up forward and play certain roles.
And Bailey Smith's probably the one that's a bit more damaging coming off the half forward and pushing up.
Yeah, potentially. They've got enough small forwards. You said Waitman. I mean, they've got a raft of them.
Yeah.
When you throw in guys like Toby McLean and stuff coming back as well, there's a lot.
Johannesson played forward in stints last year. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I just don't see any role. So just make sure you have a nice, clear mind when you go in. He's got to play 1 game in the preseason. He's got to have centre bounce attendances for a large percentage of the game time that he's in the midfield. Yeah. That's probably all you really need to do, isn't it, really?
I think that's really true. Look, for me, he's in the mix and in a bunch of different teams across the formats. I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of people that have just gone, oh, he played forward. That's where he is. I can't trust it in a way. And part of me on this podcast wants to go, yes, that is also what I believe, because I would much happily have his ownership levels juicily low, but everything about who he is, how he plays, the trends of what happens when he's in the guts, what happens with his scoring points, how that supports the rest of that midfield. I just don't see a world where he is a primary forward. It makes zero sense to me. So for that reason, I think he's one of the buyers of the year. And injury is the only thing that's going to derail that. As much as Beveridge derails some things for us, I think that's the only thing that's going to stop it. But draft is the interesting one, Ritz, where he goes, because he will be someone's F1. across formats. Well, maybe F2 in SuperCoach if you're really running deep forwards early. But where's that range of where he goes on draft day? Because you are seeing people jumping on the Duncans and the Tarantos and the Dunkleys late first into the second. But it does feel like you could almost get a comparable score to these boys, maybe even 2 or 3 rounds later. Is that too deep for him to go? What sort of round range is he going?
Well, this is going to sound ridiculous, okay? I reckon there's every chance there's going to be a lot of hype this year, MJ, with drafts coming up over the next few weeks.
Yep.
I reckon there's every chance you're getting an F1 with your second forward selection.
With Treloar.
And I know that. Yeah, I really do. I think people are going to be hesitant to take him without having that extra option. So they might take him with let's say Heaney, for instance, okay?
Sure.
Because we know there's been a lot of talk around Heaney this year. If you go Heaney and Treloar, then you're sort of covering your bases a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go Treloar and then your next option down the track is DeGoey, you're sort of you're a little bit, you're not sure how to feel about it. I hope that makes sense. So
no,
I reckon
it does.
I reckon Treloar is possibly to go. He could go in the second round, third round.
Yeah.
But he could easily slide to like round 6. It's just so stupid how crazy people's thought processes are, especially when there's some hype around certain players.
Absolutely.
So he is seriously any chance to go anywhere. He's one of those guys that could go anywhere in a draft.
Yeah, he could be third, he could be fourth, he could be fifth. Right now, our friends at the Draft Doctors have their mock draft website out, which is mock.thedraftdoctors.com.au. They've got Adam Treloar's ADP at the moment is at 25. In an AFL Fantasy and Ultimate Footy scoring format. A little bit later than that in SuperCoach. So, again, the more people that draft on that, the greater the algorithm and the understanding is. But that's a middle to late third round is where, at least right now, is where he's going on draft day.
Mate, I mean, if he was double that number, you could probably go, okay, fair enough. People are ready to take that risk. I mean, it's really going to be draft to draft. But all I could say with the drafts, okay, it's very hard to predict with guys like Treloar.
Of course.
If you're absolutely keen on Treloar, you're going to have to go early because you won't be able to predict.
Yeah, you can't react on that. Someone will see what we both see and go, third round, a potential number 1 forward, a potential 110 midfielder as a forward. Oh, yes, please. So I agree. I don't think you can sleep on him and hope that he goes in the 4th or 5th. I think if you do want to, you probably are talking a third round pick to make sure you get him if you're that bullish. I don't think you'll have to go second, but definitely
I think you might. I think you actually might. Late second, I think you might have to go a little bit early and pull that trigger.
Yeah. I guess it always comes down to where your draft position is, isn't it? Like that determines the kind of players available to you. Hey, Rids, as always, mate, an absolute pleasure chatting to you on these podcast episodes.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
If you want to go and read the article, look at the stats or a little bit more analysis on Adam Treloar, the good news, it's available to you now at coachespanel.tv. It's also got all the other players revealed so far. We just mentioned drafts, Ultimate Footy, have dropped their DPPs just a couple of weeks ago. That format is also now open and drafting is kicking off in the next couple of days. So you can check out the article. We've revealed the other players that have also picked up a DPP in Ultimate Footy. Look, really, there's stuff dropping all the time at coachespanel.tv. There's a place to be for you this fantasy footy preseason. Well, tomorrow we get into the number 13 of the 50 most relevant. This guy is a multi-time top 10 appearance player in the 50 most relevant. And he's one of a handful of guys, maybe not even that many, maybe 2 or 3, that is a genuine chance to be the top scoring player in that line. And to be honest with you, like really honest with you, if things actually broke his way in 2022, he actually could be the best player in fantasy footy next year. Who is he? You'll find out tomorrow in the 50 most relevant.